There isn't a game without its community. Fans who will support the game throughout its best or worst era. Fans who are loyal, will defend the game no matter what, or not, usually. However, in some occasions, communities will change drastically. But what do I mean by this? Well, maybe a community gets more toxic, or a community gets more competitive, but stays casual and not less toxic. For example, Call of Duty got very toxic, while Fortnite got very competitive. But take those two and put them together, and you get the absolute state of what SCP Secret Laboratories community has become. SCP SL started its run near the end of 2017 and has grew its community for the past 6 years as they continue to make their game the definitive SCP multiplayer experience. And I say for the most part they've been successful at doing so. But in the past 2 years, this game has changed massively for both good and bad. The game looks nothing like it was back in 2020 and for the first half of 2021. It's really crazy how much has changed. However, with a massive change in the past 2 years came a massive shift in the community. So today, I thought we'd look at the downfall of this community and maybe get an answer as to how this such massive shift happened in the first place. Also, I should probably say before we start that I am not trying to target any specific person with this or anybody in general. I just want to give a history of the community and just see what went wrong. So please, don't take this into offense. I think it's best if we start during the early stages of SL, or basically the game up until I say 6 or 7.0. Now when the game released, it was basically just Containment Breach but multiplayer. It did have its own style to it since we couldn't go that far, but overall the reception for its early run was mixed for the most part. But the community was building in a good way, it seemed. I don't know much for this part, how the community was, so if there's any vets of the game that were playing around this time, feel free to comment down below how it was. I would appreciate it. The game slowly continued to grow during 2018 as more updates kept releasing at a consistent basis, with them adding stuff like 096, the beginning process of the light containment zone overhaul, blood, keybinds, ragdolls, just everything you expect in a multiplayer game basically. But everything changed when version 6.0 released. This update saw the full light containment zone overhaul, the first gun overhaul, yes there was one before the other one, we'll talk about that one later, and the facility guard role. This of course was a big update that would be completely overshadowed by the next one, version 7.0. Old 99 was added, the weed room, workstations, achievements, the new 106 model, the grenades rework, and finally the Tesla gate returned. It was so crazy, dude. And this brings us into the golden ages of SL. It was nothing but vibes. The community was thriving with all these updates, and it was gonna get even better with Mega Patch Part 2. Mega Patch Part 2 is, in my opinion, the best update in SL's history. This update added the lockers, it reworked the treatment system by adding pills and the adrenaline, it added all the SCP items, the micro was reworked, a shit ton of gameplay changes. It was fucking insane how good this update was. And the community was loving the shit out of it too, and overall Mega Patch Part 2 was just the peak of SL to this very day. Okay, let's get to real shit now. I think the beginning of the problems for both the game and the community started to pop up in Scopophobia, mainly with the 096 rework. The 096 rework was on its own a disaster for the most part. 096 was really overpowered when it released, and the community was having none of it. And with a little help of a certain person I won't mention for now made a video about it, everybody agreed that 096 needed to be fixed now. Everyone basically came together with this. It just kind of showed how the community was during this time. They were whole for the most part. Sure, there was always that one dude who thought otherwise, but overall the community all agreed that 096 was too OP and Northwood would listen and rebalance in the next update, which they have continued to do ever since. Yeah, so 096 has basically been in a rebalancing phase ever since then, and almost every time, I hate to say, it has failed. It has not worked out. But moving on from that, the 096 rework didn't stop the community from thriving during this age. However, also during this time, there was a little surge of more competitive players. As the game continued to grow during 2020 and the pandemic era, since obviously more players were able to be on during this time with everything in lockdown, there was just a little surge in more competitive players. But overall, the community was great. The game was growing, and even during this time, it was when I started to play Secret Lab. The winter era of 2020 was nothing but a vibe on that game. It was just a lot of fun just playing with other people, meeting new friends, new enemies. And then 2021 hit, everything was looking great, the community was looking great, it was all still a vibe. And then came Parabellum. So Parabellum was announced during February of 2021 when they revealed that the guns would be getting an overhaul for the second time. They also revealed a new armored system, a new radio, as well as now being able to move slots in your inventory around. It looked really cool and got people excited for the update instantly. Meanwhile, during all this, the current game was still very casual and was falling off a little since all of Northwood's work was being put into the gun update. During the build-up to the beta release, they dropped a lot of teasers to Patreon supporters showing off the new gun models and what was to come, which all led to the absolute bombshell on July 10th, when they finally revealed all the major changes to the update to the public. They showed off all the new gun models, apart from the AK, which are still being worked on. They showed the new recoil system, weapon hotkeys, the new attachment system. You can now throw stuff by pressing T, the new models for the medical items, as well as some others, the new radio model, the new Tesla Gate model in effect, new changes to the RA, and a new culling system. It was a bombshell of information, but it wasn't even the best part, because on the same day at around 2 p.m. Eastern time, they announced that the 11.0 beta was officially underway for Patreon supporters tier 4 and up, and people fucking bought this shit in droves. Northwood was making bank, over $10,000 at one point with this one singular update they were making. However, it wasn't just because of the gun update, no. Because on July 24th, they revealed the true major change to the update, and that was the 173 rework. It got a new model, new abilities, new gameplay mechanics. It was insane, and it was a massive success for the game. Content creators who were making videos on this update were blowing off massively over this. This, of course, even helped further since during this time YouTube Shorts was added to the platform. It was insane. The Parabellum update changed everything and was a massive success for Northwood. But with this came at a cost, and that was the community. While the community was definitely thriving over the update, Parabellum itself was seeming to try and get attention of the competitive side of gaming. Now, I already said that before the update there was a little surge in competitive players, but overall didn't have a massive effect towards the game and the community. However, this update alone caused the beginning of the complete downfall of SL's community. This update saw a massive surge of competitive players come into the game for the first time, would have a massive effect towards the community. It was insane the shift the community took. This game, it felt completely different playing, not only because, well, the game was completely different with Parabellum, but with the community as well being a lot more competitive, this also caused a lot of the more casual players who were around during the old days starting to move on as they weren't having fun with the new vibe of the game and the community. I was honestly fine with the new shift. I still had a lot of fun on SL, but the signs were obviously starting to show. At the rate it was going, it was only time until the community completely fell apart. And it completely fell apart in 2022. 2022 was just the worst year of SL's run yet. It was a disaster almost the whole way through up until Mimicry, not just for the game, but really for the community. The community just fell apart entirely. What was left of the 2019 through 2020 community was completely shattered now. The community became a lot more toxic, a lot more divided, more angry at each other. It was a shit show from start to finish. And I mean, the world in general has just gotten a lot more divided and shit now. However, the worst part of it all, though, wasn't even the community's fault. Oh boy, here we go. So, I was a little bit mixed on if I even wanted to talk about this in the first place, because it is truly fucked up how these community servers crumbled. But I do think these matter in the community's downfall, so here goes nothing. So like I said, 2022 fucking sucked for SL. It was a shit show up until Mimicry, but what the community couldn't undo or fix in any way was two major shutdowns of community servers that caused the community's hearts to be shattered. And those were Cognity's Playground and Unlimited SCP. Okay, let's start with Unlimited. Unlimited SCP was, before it shut down last year, perhaps the biggest server on SL, with right behind them being Dr. Bright's and King's Playground. This server was a lot of people's go-to when first starting. This was Samardit's main server, and we all know how big he was during 2020 through 2021. It has a lot of plugins that kept the game fun, and overall, Unlimited was perhaps the server to go to. Now, I personally never got into Unlimited. The main server I got into when I started, and I'm sure many other people's first server, was Dr. Bright's, but when I did play it, I definitely saw why this server was a lot of people's favorite during its run. But then came the shutdown, and it really sucked how it happened. It was just nothing that anyone could fix. The staff team kind of fucked themselves when they did this. And also, should probably mention, I don't know that much about what happened, I just know how it all went down, but basically, the former owner stepped down, a new owner was brought in, and when the staff team found out his secret, he shut down the server. And that so eminent secret was, the new Unlimited owner was a yeah. Oh, what a world we live in. But what's even worse is the Cognity's shutdown. And oh boy, did they really screw up in a bad way. Cognity's was one of my main go-tos whenever I started branching out towards other servers. This server brought a lot of that fun back I was missing, and was one of the only communities that were more casual than others. They wanted to have fun with their server, and a lot of the main content creators at the time were mainly streaming on Cognity's Playground. Then, after the Parabellum update release, Northwood then added primitives, which could basically make custom objects in your servers. Cognity's then used this and made their own Surface Zone update, and it was quite successful. However, using primitives will later come back to haunt them. Otherwise, the server continued on into 2022, and just like the community itself at the time, Cognity's community started to slowly crack. Another problem, though, was with the primitives, which didn't come back to haunt them since, well, it just kept adding more primitive stuff into their server, and with this caused severe frame rate issues. The frames were abysmal for the most part, and Cognity, who by the way is a server owner and is a former Northwood staff, decided to not remove any of the primitives on the server, but to instead drop the player size count down from 40 to 25. Fucking hell. This only did not fix the frame issues, but also meant that, well, less people would be able to join, so it'd just be less fun and chaotic. But of course, the worst was yet to come, because now we get to the shutdown itself. It's July 16th. It starts off normal, but then on Discord you hear the iconic notification sound. You go to see what it is, and yeah. So, for context, before the shutdown happened, throughout the previous few days, the staff team for COGS was starting to leave in droves. And it was pretty unclear at first, until July 16th, when this bombshell was revealed on Cognity's Discord and eventually on Wyatt's Discord. And the reason for it was because, and before I say this, if you don't want to feel uncomfortable after me saying it, then you can skip to this time mark here. But the reason was, the owner of the server, Cognity, got into a Snapchat call with a underage staff and then goes on to send him, or her, NSFW pics of femboys and asked them to rate it. Once this was announced on the Cognity's Discord server, Cognity quickly shut down the server, the Discord, and left the Northwood staff. After it all, Wyatt then talked to him about it, and he had this to say. I know you posted this, but I'd just like to explain. I have a multi-personality disorder, and sometimes I'm genuinely not in control. I've already booked therapy sessions to get this under control. It used to be a rare occasion before I started to host SL and Discord, etc., but it got really bad really quickly with all the stress of everything. I'll understand if you hate me or something, but I just wanted to say this. I've kept it private to many people. Only a few staff know of my condition and know the extent of my freakouts, but I will get better. So yeah, all of this was just sad to watch. Colonies was one of the most fun servers with a lot of plugins to keep the game exciting, and to see this in Unlimited go down in basically the exact same way just shows how fucked the world has become in the community. There are so many people out there that just do bad shit and ruin people's lives for years, and it sucks to see. So yeah, overall, these shutdowns in 2022 shattered their communities and left quite a hole for some time. Something that we're still trying to rebuild to this very day. Overall, the SL community has completely shattered, been torn apart these past few years, and it hasn't seemed to get any better now in the modern day. And to answer the question at the start of what caused the massive shift and eventual downfall of the community, although there's a lot of reasons as to why, I think Parabellum is what changed it all. It was the beginning of the end from that moment forward, and with the world just getting worse, it kinda is what caused all the mess done in the first place. I don't blame the competitive players exactly for it, or Northwood fully. The internet can just be a dark place at times, and bad people just started to swarm SL in droves last year, causing chaos throughout. And it obviously didn't help that 2 of the biggest community servers shut down the same year. It just made things worse, and just shows how bad some people can be in this world sometimes. Although the community has crumbled though, I will say, I think we're starting to get better just a little bit. It's still bad, but it's starting to change in a good way, and if this continues, maybe SL's community can reach the peak that it once hit, although it isn't likely this will happen. So in short, SCP-SL's community has taken a massive shift in the past few years, from a fun, loving, thriving community to a more competitive, but also more toxic and just overrun by some shitty people. And if we want to rebuild SL to its peak, we might as well start with rebuilding the community. That's if we even can.